بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. In a few days we will be receiving the month of Ramadan, in 10 days inshallah. فَاللَّهُمَّ بَلِّغْنَا رَمَضَانَ اللَّهُمَّ آمين. We have been talking about the purpose of Ramadan and how to prepare for Ramadan and many other things related to Ramadan, and very important also is to talk briefly about some of the rulings and ahkam of Siyam and fasting and general rulings of Siyam. Inshallah, in this 15-20 minutes, inshallah, I will be trying to cover some of the most important rulings of fasting, revision for many of us, and maybe some new information as well. When we talk about Ramadan, it's mostly about fasting, it's Siyam. The main thing in Ramadan is fasting. How do we fast? Again, I said it a couple of weeks ago, and this is by far the most asked question to me, at least, which is about, I missed a few days from Ramadan before. How much do I have to pay? For anybody who is studying, Siyam, it's like ABC. But it looks like majority of Muslims, in my opinion, they don't know what to do in this case. They all think they have to pay fidya. They have to pay to feed one person in place of every day. This is just an example for you to show how important it is to learn the rulings. The fact is, not everybody can pay fidya. Only old people or terminally ill people, only people who will never be able to make up to fast. You miss one day, you have to fast. Only when you cannot fast because you're too old and you're expecting only to get older, or if you're terminally sick, somebody is diabetic, somebody is, it's going to be there. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's terminal. So those are the only two people who can pay fidya. They can, I missed one day, I feed one person or two, according to some other ahkam. So feed, only those people can feed. But you are capable of fasting now, right? You missed one day, you have to fast it. You have to fast it. So this is an example, just an example that shows how important is it to go over the ahkam. What is a siyam? Siyam is actually, there's no action in siyam. You don't do actions. Lughatan al-imsak, you abstain. Abstaining from what? Abstaining from all the breakers of fasting, from anything it's a list of things to break fasting. Abstaining from al-mufattirat, those breakers of fasting, from dawn, al-fajr, not sunrise. Some people, I get that question too, thinking it's sunrise. It is not sunrise, it is the time of fajr salah. Some of us might not be very keen about fajr salah, and many of us think the morning prayer is after you wake up, at 9, at 10, at whenever you well, that's good, but that's going to be qada. You're praying qada. It's not in the time. It's out of time now. The time of Fajr begins at dawn, which is in the list, Fajr time. This is the time that you have to stop eating. Absolutely stop eating and drinking from that time. This is the fasting on mode, fasting on time. From that time you're fasting all the way to Maghrib, sunset time, with the intention of doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So abstaining from whatever breaks fasting, we'll talk about in a second, from Fajr to sunset, from dawn to sunset, with the intention of having it Siyam. Siyam did not come at year 1 or in Mecca, it came at year 2. In Medina, it was made obligatory on Muslims by the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O you who believe, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, fasting is prescribed on you or for you as it was prescribed for the people before you, that you may gain taqwa, as we all know the ayah. And many other ahadith. One of them is Islam is built on 5. One of them is fasting of Ramadan. The pillars, one of the pillars of Islam. Some, very few obviously, might think that it's optional or I cannot do it. Well, there are some concessions out there, but it's not optional. It's one of the pillars of Islam. You have to absolutely make sure that you do this obligation. Ramadan comes, the month of Ramadan is usually in the past and all through the time when the new moon comes. And nowadays, many masjids follow the calculation when we know that the moon is born, and it's also confirmed by sighting. That marks the beginning of the month of Ramadan. And we go for the next 28, 29, or 30 days fasting the month of Ramadan. Who should fast, or what are the conditions of somebody for fasting to be obligatory on somebody? It's on Muslims, obviously, Islam. It's on people of taklif, that's an adult reaching the Islamic age of puberty, which is not the 18, not the 21, not whatever other age that other laws might give us. It's from the time that person, if he is a man, he reached, he got the wet dream, or he started having, the hair. Those signs of puberty in general, biologically reaching the age of puberty, or for women, they have the menses. From that time, whether you are 12 or 11 or 13 or 15, all the rules of Islam would apply to you. One of them is Ramadan. This is the first, or fasting Ramadan. This is the first aspect of taklif. The second aspect is aql. So you should reach the age of puberty, and then you should be in a state of capacity. I'm not talking about somebody who is not wise or something. I'm talking about a person being in full mental capacity, that they understand and they know what they are doing. Fasting become obligatory on them. And obviously one of the conditions for fasting to be obligatory is you should be free from anything to prevent you from fasting. Like what? I give you one example for women during the period, during the menses, al-hayd. A woman during hayd, even if she decides to fast, her fasting will not be acceptable. This is one thing that prevents fasting and gives concession, or actually makes it obligatory on a woman to fast. Another excuse, if somebody is traveling, if somebody is sick, those have a concession to fasting. Is not obligatory on them, but it's optional for them in this case to do it right now. But if they choose to break the fasting, obviously they have to make it up later on. What could be some of the excuses that I can break my fasting? And please feel free to stop. Those also who are watching, feel free to put your questions, because I don't want it to make it too long. Put your question, and also those who are here, if you have any question as I'm speaking. One concession, rukhsa, to break the fasting is al-marad, sickness. Somebody is sick. But what kind of sickness? What kind of marad? I have a sore throat. I feel some kind of sore throat or something. I guess it's because of the khutbah and long day. It's a little sick. I can tell myself I'm sick. What do you mean? Like, khalas, I'm sick. I break my fasting? No, not any sickness. Not any, you're not feeling well. No. The sickness, scholar talked about sickness that will cause acute pain. Not any pain. Acute pain. Acute, constant pain that would lead, or will lead to some of the organs being affected. The body is being affected somehow if you fast. So either pain or harm to the body, any of the organs of the body, that, if you fast, it might lead to that. Then in this case, that's an enough excuse. Excuse number two is traveling. Traveling to where? To downtown? Traveling should be 50 miles or more. Yes, for some people, 50 miles, that's like what? Auburn, or a little bit. That is fast. That is traveling in Islam. 50 miles or more, even in what? In Tesla, in limousine, that's most luxurious, it's traveling. If you choose to do it this way, any traveling that's 50 miles or more, minimum 50 miles of our miles nowadays, 48 miles to be specific, and beyond, you may break your fasting. But if you decide to break it, again, you will have to make it whenever you can later on, inshallah. Those two excuses are mentioned in the Quran. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخْرَى. Those, as Allah was speaking about fasting, those who are sick or happen to be on travel, عِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخْرَى. Question regarding traveling: is there a distance regulation? For instance, I should not break my fast if I am traveling to Los Angeles on the plane. Yeah, I just talked about this brother who asked this question, 50 miles. As low as 50 miles, enough excuse to break your fasting. For me, if I'm traveling 50 miles and sometimes even nationally, it is bearable. It is harder for me to make up later on. It's easier for me as Amr, but that's my choice, to fast in Ramadan while I'm in the mode of fasting than having to make it up later on. But for someone else, he or she could choose to, no, fasting is too much for me. While traveling, I can break it and make up later on. That's your choice. Allah said, if you are on travel, if you are sick or in travel, you have enough excuse and you can do it later on. So the two excuses so far. Number one is disease or sickness, marad. Number two is as-safar, traveling. Number three is al-ajzu an as-siyam. Well, I'm not sick, I am not traveling, but I cannot fast. Give me an example. Old age, good example. This is not, old age is not sickness, is not bad, al-haram. Somebody is just like not capable of fasting because of their age. So in this case, that's ajz. They are not able to do it in this case. What else? Al-ish? Al-murda'a, yeah, if somebody breastfeeding, a woman is breastfeeding, or a woman is pregnant, pregnancy is not disease, is it? Or breastfeeding, but they are in a condition, could be in a condition that fasting could affect them. Or down the same line, heart disease, all kind of diseases that applies later on. But what I'm talking about is somebody who is, we have a lot of people who have really tough jobs all day under the sun, in the sun of Sacramento in the summer, 90 degrees, 100 degrees. I know many people are able to do it, but some others it's difficult. It's all physical work all day, that if they do not drink water during the day, it's going to be difficult. If it gets to that level, and that's your deen, you decide. That's your deen. I cannot do it to Allah. Allah does not want to punish you. So you, for those people, they can break their fasting and they can choose the days of vacations or shorter days later on in the winter, convenient for them, and they can make up for those missed days. Any ajz an as-siyam, anything that makes the person really in a position to fast, they can, this is an excuse, inshallah. Excuse me? Did anybody get that? Poor people? What about poor people? Poor people are strong. What poverty? They don't have food to eat? Okay, well, we have to take care of them anyway, and they don't have food to eat, they are fasting by definition. So fasting is not, that's one of the things, by the way, many of us might think that fasting is mainly for us to feel for the poor and needy. Well, that's good point, but it's not why you are fasting in the first place. Because if this is the case, why would poor and needy have to fast as well? The one of the points of it is this, but it's mainly to train us to obey Allah, to put ourselves under control. But whether you're poor or rich, whether you have food or not have food, it's up. If you can't afford it and you don't have any of these excuses, then you have to fast in this case, and becomes it is obligatory on the person unless they have an excuse. So how to fast? How to fast? Fasting, like I said, does not have any actions. All the components of fasting are two components, no more. Number one is the niyyah, intention. You have to have the intention that you're fasting. And number two is the imsak, or the abstaining. You have the intention and you abstain all day from the list of breakers of fasting. Talking about niyyah, when, how, where. Some scholars said one intention in the beginning of the month is good for the whole month. I intend in the beginning of Ramadan, should be after the Ramadan comes. And Ramadan comes, as we know, from Maghrib or sunset of the night right before Ramadan. An intention right now to fast the whole month, according to Imam Malik and some others, is good. Many other scholars believe that you have to have a separate intention for every single night. And don't panic, because usually people say every single night I have to make it. Well, it's very simple and very easy. If it just crosses your mind and heart at any point that you are fasting tomorrow, that's the niyyah. If you set up your alarm to wake up at night, to get your suhoor, sihri, this meal, to fast in the morning, that is niyyah, even if you did not wake up. If you wake up, take a sip of water or eat or something, that is niyyah. So think about it that I'm planning to fast tomorrow. That is the niyyah. It should happen at night. And we have actually a hadith, من لم يبيت النية قبل الفجر فلا صيام له, as in one hadith. That's item number one, or component number one of fasting. What you should do, intention for every night. Too difficult for you, one intention at the beginning of the month, and you should be good to go. Item number two is to abstain. Abstain from whatever breaks fasting. Abstain from what? I have seen some people, at least one case, a person, a very humble person, they thought it's abstaining only from food. They did not think water is included. ظنوا أن الماء أو ظنت الأخت أن الماء مش من And she is Muslim for like, I think 1973 or 74. She thought it's only food. It's food and water, obviously. But the list is intentionally eating or drinking. And pay attention to the word intentionally. What you should not do during the Siyam, what you abstain from, is intentional eating or drinking. What do you mean? If I eat unintentionally or drink unintentionally, بدون تعمد, does it not break fasting? Does it break fasting? It does not. Unintentionally. First day of Ramadan, I'm used to open the fridge, pick up something, eat it. Even if you eat everything in the fridge. As long as it's not intentional, right? As long as it's not, if it is intentional, then this would affect the fasting. The very universal question, what if I see my wife or my husband or somebody eating in front of me? I know it's Ramadan. They are not aware. They are not intentionally eating. Shall I remind them, yes or no? I usually ask this question and I have division of opinion. Maybe one time we can have consensus. If you see your brother, your roommate, your spouse eating in the day of Ramadan, you know they don't mean, they just like, okay, picking up something and they are reading Quran. They don't pay attention. Should you remind them or not? Yes, raise your hand. No, raise your hand. Minority. We will go with the majority, brother. Sorry. So majority is always good. Yeah, they have an excuse. Whatever they eat, if somebody did not see them, somebody did not remind them, they do have an excuse to eat and drink because it's unintentional. Do you have an excuse not to remind them because the action itself is breaking, is not right? So, and as they are doing it, is not right. But they have the excuse because they are forgetting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not hold those who are forgetting, does not hold them accountable. But you are not forgetting. You are totally aware of what they are doing. It's your obligation actually to remind them, regardless of what will happen to you after that. But yes, as far as the amount itself, is it too much or too little? Even if they, like I told you, if they ate a lot of food, it does not affect the fasting, because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال من نسي وهو صائم فأكل أو شرب فليتم صومه فإنما أطعمه الله وسقاه. Whosoever forgets and eats or drinks while fasting, that's the Prophet ﷺ saying, let him complete their fasting. It's Allah who provided this food and water for them. So this is item number one. Number two that breaks fasting, anything that reaches jawf. Jawf is an Arabic term that refers to a specific, the jawf is anything that's beyond the throat, down here inside. It does not include, usually it does not include the blood streams. It's talking about the digestion system. If it reaches, if anything reaches there, it doesn't have to be food. Somebody is playing, somebody lets one of these beads and he puts it, he swallows, he decides to swallow it. As sesame, even if it's too tiny, too small, a grain of sand, who would do that? But it happens. If somebody intentionally decides to swallow something, even if it's not edible, it affects the fasting. It will break their fasting. Many questions about what about the drops, the eye drops, the ear drops, and all of these. Those all should be okay, inshallah. القطرة في العين وفي الأذن وفي الأنف. All of these should be okay, but especially with the eye and with the nose, be careful, because some of it, you might feel it in your throat. If you feel it in your throat, you spit it out. Don't swallow it. If you swallow it, that intentionally swallow it, that will affect the fasting. Other than this will not affect the fasting. What about injection? Yes. Dental treatment in itself does not affect fasting, but I go to the dentist. I don't remember one time that I go there and I don't swallow tons of things. So if you have, I would say it practically, if you have to go, many, I think many, if not most of the cases of having to see a dentist is going to be somehow urgent. If it's not urgent, let's say cleaning, you can wait on that after Ramadan. Or if something you can take in a way or another, delay until after Ramadan, I would recommend to do that. But obviously, if you have to go, you have to go. If you swallow anything, then you can make up for that day later on, inshallah, no problem. And the excuse is out there. That person is going to qualify as a marid in this case. He is sick, and that's why he had to swallow something or take something. Muhammad?
What about brushing your teeth?
Yes, good question. Brushing your teeth is obviously needed, and it does not usually cause you to swallow anything. It's okay. But the Prophet ﷺ, the guideline for this, he said, وَبَالِغْ فِي الْمَضْمَضَةِ وَالِاسْتِنْشَاقِ إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ صَائِمًا. He usually said, as in the course of wudu, as you are rinsing, taking water to your mouth and nose, make sure you do it extravagantly. You do it extensively at other times, unless you are fasting. If you are fasting for madmada and istinshaq at the course of wudu, do it quick. Same applies for brushing the teeth. If you usually do it and take your time and have the toothpaste on for, as you go making your coffee and 3-5 minutes or something. No, in Ramadan, just make sure you wash quick and don't leave a lot of stuff in your mouth, because if you swallow anything, it affects the fasting. But you definitely can brush the teeth during fasting and use the miswak as well, which is same for brushing the teeth, inshallah. Muhammad. Okay. So anything that reaches, what about injection? Injection, take it as a rule of thumb, all injections are okay. All injections or drawing a blood, taking a blood or injection are generally okay. Only one exception is there. The only one exception is if the injection is can replace food. If it is nutrition, if it is anything that has nutritions. If it has nutritions, scholars had the ijtihad that, well, you can survive on it. That's food. That's not food, but that's a supplementary kind of food. But injection, somebody asked me the other day, a sister, she said her kids, in order to continue going to school, they have to take a coronavirus test every 2 weeks, I believe. She asked me about that and also about the injection. Can I take the vaccination? I think she's scheduled for, it's going to be in Ramadan. Yes, for both. So taking a swab or test or something is not going to swallow anything. Injection, like I said, the only one exception that may affect or will affect fasting is injection of anything that's nutritious. Other than this, if it is a vaccine, if it is any kind of drug, no problem. Swallowing your saliva or that doesn't affect fasting. What if there is something left beneath your teeth from suhoor, right? Somebody is taking shawarma and suhoor. Somebody is taking, mashallah, the beautiful biryani meat or lamb or something, and then you have pieces of meat or whatever that could be there that has a texture in there. Then what? And Fajr is there and everything, but couple of hours to fasting, I felt something in there. You have to spit it out. You have to remove it and take it out. طيب اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Intentional vomiting, who would do that? But if somebody intentionally vomits, it breaks the fasting because we have a specific hadith in that. On the list of breakers of fasting as well is intentional intimacy. If somebody intentionally, and there's a lot of discussion about this intentional. Can it happen unintentionally? And actually, it may happen unintentionally according to Imam Ahmad and others. But having this relationship obviously is one of the things you cannot do during fasting. Kulu washrabu, Allah said during the night of Ramadan, eat and drink. حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. Basically until Fajr you can do all of that. And then he said ولا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد. Basically do not have this relationship with your wife. And the ayah has more detail into it. Al-istimna, any ejaculation, intentional ejaculation, will affect the fasting. We're talking about rules now, and we have to mention everything that will affect fasting. Al-hayd wa nifas, menses, if the period comes to the lady during the day, this day is over for her, and she has to make up for that specific day. And obviously, whatever she fasts, let's say half day or 1 minute before Maghrib, do you say that this day does not count? Fiqh-wise, yes, it does not, or no, it does not count. But the reward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah is so wide, He will give her the reward, inshallah, the full reward. But this day is gone. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Someone missed the fasting for 1 week because of traveling. And instead of doing the fasting right after Ramadan, he waited until December when the day is short. Is it okay?
Totally okay. Sayyida Aisha, did you get the question? Somebody missed, let's say 1 week or a few days or whatever, all the whole Ramadan because of traveling. And they decided to make up, chose a shorter day, easier day during December, shorter day, not too hot like the Ramadan is almost in the summer. It's moving to the spring and to the winter in a few years, inshallah. But that person chose to fast, make up the fast in a shorter day. Is that okay? Because if you fasted with everybody else, the day was 17, 18 hours of fasting. In December, the day is like what? I guess this is an account. He should be an accountant. That's absolutely fine. No problem. Actually, a siyam, fasting in the shorter days and cold days, and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called it al-ghanimatul barida. It is called the cold or the cool wind, because it's just a few hours and it's before you even realize it's Maghrib. Sometimes, it's very easy to make fasting on these days. Sayyidah Aisha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, she said, I used to have to miss some days in Ramadan, and I would not be capable or able of making up for these days until the next Sha'ban, which is just the month before Ramadan, like until 11 months later, because I was busy with the Prophet ﷺ. So she would do that. The next question is, what if I could not do it even in this year and the next Ramadan comes? Do I still have to do it? مضى الإنسان العام كاملا ولم يقضي الأيام. Yes, you still have to do it. Some other madhab, like madhab Imam Shafi'i, they will add things other than making up this day. They will add also fidya on top of that. I don't believe, even though I'm Shafi'i myself, the more authentic opinion is we don't make fard, anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make fard on people. What Allah made as fard, if you miss a day, you make up a day. To do it in time, you need to do it before the next Ramadan, the whole year. There's no difference. Obviously, the earlier the better. But if you delay it until the end, it's still within time. If you delay it past Ramadan, you still have to do it. Hopefully you have a valid excuse, but if you don't have a valid excuse, or if you do have a valid excuse, you still have to do it as well. The next addendum to that question, what if somebody was, let's say, away Muslim, but away from Allah, away from God, missed so many Ramadans, I just came back to Allah when I was 50 or whatever, and I missed all of these years. What should I do? Same rulings that apply for Salah. Somebody was not praying for so long, was not doing their zakah. The obligatory things, whether it's for Allah or for people, becomes obligatory on you until they are waived. If you take $10 from me, 70 years later, you owe them to me. You don't pay them here, you pay them in the akhirah unless I waive that. You did not pay those 2 obligatory rak'ah, they become in your dhimma, on you, until Allah waives them, and Allah did not say that He would waive them. You still have to make them. How? It's difficult. A scholar suggested with every year, maybe a few days here, a few days there, with the salawat as well. With every dhuhr, maybe you pray another dhuhr, or with every asr, another asr. Try to, if Allah sees you serious, inshallah, if you manage to finish everything that you owe, that's good. If you don't manage, maybe He will forgive you. But you still have to try to make up for that missed day. Same for zakah as well.
In my example, if the fellow died before December,
Very good question. What if somebody passed away before I cannot make up my fasting? Let's say somebody, same rulings applies if somebody dies, let's say in the day of Eid. Day of Eid is haram to make your fasting. You owe 5 days, you owe 10 days. You did not get time to do it at all. But your question is valid because I did have time. Somebody got time. It is the same thing like, let's say somebody passed away in Dhuhr, let's say, comes at 12 o'clock, as an example. And he, from 12 o'clock, Dhuhr becomes obligatory. 12:30, 1 o'clock, I didn't do it. 2:30, Asr, let's say, is at 3. And I didn't do it, but I passed away at this time. It depends on the intention of the person in this case. If their intention was, yes, I'm planning to do it, I will do it. It is in time. Allah will not question them, inshallah. They will be excused. Same for fasting, same for, because it's still within time. It's still within time. That person did not commit, did not do anything wrong to let all the window that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made, He did not let it pass without doing it. Obviously, sari'u, do it as soon as you can, but it's not obligatory that if somebody misses any days, you do it the next day of Eid, or you do it as soon. Better to do it as soon as you can, but you have one full year to do that. Any other questions? I don't want to hold you for too long. I take a couple more, and then we can.
What if you break your fast intentionally?
You break your fasting intentionally. Again, this is a session talking, as you see, about rulings. Fiqh. Al-kalam an al-ahkam, we talk about laws, rules, what Allah. But talking about the ajr, the reward, talking about things like that, this is a different story. So if somebody intentionally, with no excuse, obviously, right? With no excuse decides to break their fasting, the scholar said, if he fasts the whole time until Yawm al-Qiyamah, until he dies, until the end of his time, that will never, in terms of reward that he missed, will never be able to fill up for that day that he missed. But legally, what should he do? He should make up that day, just one day. And that's only for breaking fasting by eating or drinking. If somebody breaks his fasting by having the intimacy, that's totally different story. Totally different story. It's too hard. It's going to be 2 months. 2 months of fasting. You don't want to do that. It has different levels, and one of them is to fast for 2 months. Any other questions, Akhi? Did you raise your hand? Right.
If you have a bottle of water and you have a little bit left and you hear that prayer, are you able to finish that?
Adhan, you mean? The adhan. The adhan is the call for prayer. Adhan is the call for prayer. Adhan al-Fajr, the call for prayer. Let's say it's 5:45 these days. 5:45, you have to stop eating and drinking. I am aware of what you're talking about. Some would say you can go ahead as long as the adhan is on and all of that. None of that has a valid excuse. From Fajr all the way, you have all night long, plan it and do it and drink. What could be, a little light is if you still have something in your mouth. That's already in your mouth. You can swallow that. You may swallow. I would not swallow. I personally would not. If I hear adhan al-Fajr, I would not let anything. But if something is in your mouth, it could be. But to continue to eat, or let me finish this cup of tea, or this or that, well, it might take me 30 seconds to finish the tea. It might take you 2 minutes. Someone else 10 minutes. I'm not done yet. I'm still having my suhoor, and I usually take half an hour. That's not. لا يضبط هذا. Al-ahkam rules are usually, they have to be set according to measured. This cannot be measured. So what can be measured is what Allah said, Fajr, the beginning of the time in there. من الفجر خيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. Because when this ayah was revealed, the Sahabi, Allah said you can eat and drink until the white thread is known to you from the black thread. So he literally kept a white thread and black thread, and they did not have any lights. And he was eating and drinking and thinking that until I can realize which one. That's going to be actually late until it's lit. It's way after Fajr. Then Allah revealed the two words, min al-Fajr, of the Fajr, the dawn. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this is one of the few ayat that he himself gave tafsir to. He said, that refers to the Fajr time, not the literal meaning of white thread and black thread. It said the white thread is the day, the black thread is the night. Min al-fajr, the time to start is fajr, inshallah. Alright, هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Let's make a quick dua inshallah. اللهم بلغنا رمضان يا رب العالمين. Oh Allah, make us catch the month of Ramadan يا رب العالمين. Oh Allah, give us the strength to fast as we should fast. Give us the full reward of fasting يا رب العالمين. Give us the power and strength to pray and to do all the good deeds for your sake in Ramadan, and transform and change to that which is the best during the month of Ramadan. Allahumma ameen, ameen. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Quickly, we have, leave it on for a second. We have two activities going on this weekend that you might need to check out. Tomorrow, inshallah, there is a beautiful hiking trip, inshallah. If you are willing, a whole family, everybody is invited. You can, nothing is provided. You have to, you're responsible for your transportation and everything. You can meet us here at Salam. We will meet at Salam here at 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. Just bring your family and come, and we will move together, everybody in their cars, to Auburn, which is like 40 minutes. I saw it in the map, 40 minutes from here. I have been to this trail before myself. Nice trail, hiking trail, across the river, and then walk into the dam in there and the lake and coming back, inshallah. It's medium, it's not difficult at all, and everybody would go on their base, inshallah. Bring some snacks and some water, and just join us if you want to go at 9 o'clock here, inshallah. Then on Sunday, day after tomorrow, hiking trip. This is biking trip, and Brother Ruslan is right here taking the lead on that. It's going to be here at Sacramento, the beautiful river in here. There is a nice biking trail. And if you want to have more details about this, inshallah, there are 2 flyers on this side and 2 flyers on this side in both lobbies for brothers and sisters. You can take a picture and check out all the information, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khair. Wa iyyakum.